Delivery. UPS. Hello? Mr. Steiner. Miss Steiner. Hello? Ina, don't say a word.
Ina and David Steiner had slid off the living room couch and were huddled behind it for cover. David gulped, his eyes darting between the front door and the boxes that sat on their desk in the living room. The Steiners were used to regular deliveries. They bought and sold collectibles and ran an e-commerce forum that provided advice for other online sellers. But these deliveries were different. Over the past few days, packages had been sent specifically to terrorize David and his wife. A box of live cockroaches and spiders. A manual on surviving the death of a spouse, accompanied by a funeral wreath, and a Halloween mask of a bloody pig face. 15 minutes after they opened that last package, a threatening DM appeared in Mr. Steiner's inbox in all caps.
Do I have your attention now?
Who would do this to them? If I were Keith Morrison, this would be the part where I'd tell you that David has a scorned ex-lover set on revenge, or that Ina was an unassuming suburban Massachusetts drug kingpin. But this isn't Dateline. It's corporate gossip. Yes, the villains targeting the Steiners were employees of one of the most famous tech companies in America, eBay. They were directed to terrorize the couple by the company's own executives, aggravated by the Steiners' critique of the company on their niche e-commerce blog. Wait, am I reading that right? The chief executives at eBay were so deeply butthurt about a small comment on a niche blog that they crashed out into a Goodfellas-esque rage-fueled paranoid spiral and orchestrated a highly illegal stalking and harassment campaign against one of their own sellers? And they were so bad at it that they got caught by the local Boston area police almost immediately. Their sloppy work was little relief to the Steiners, however. They still had to suffer through weeks of what they called psychological torture by eBay. The employees who were caught in the act were sentenced to prison time. And as far as the executives who directed the crime from their offices in Silicon Valley, despite all the evidence, including text messages, got to float away on golden parachutes and a pesky little addendum on their Wikipedia page.
This is the Corporate Gossip Podcast. eBay. Dorkfellas.
Okay, let's start. Go. Speed.
Welcome back to another episode of the Corporate Gossip Podcast. I'm your host, CPA Scorned, aka Solid Storyteller Who's Delusional, aka Millennial Screecher. Some of my favorite comments recently left on our podcast. And I have to say, the people who snark on this podcast are very creative and have very good insults that I appreciate. So keep them coming. Anyway, and I'm also here with my brother and my co-host,
Reformed data analytics playboy Adam Platsky, who's also sick.
but
uninvited to the Burrow House Creative housewarming party.
yes, Burrow House Creative, the studio that Mike is opening and has been opened, is having their opening party tonight, which is so exciting. Unfortunately, we did have to power through and record this episode as it comes out in only a few days, and I officially uninvited Adam to the party because he's not feeling well.
Which starts in like 4 hours.
So I don't think you're going to turn a corner between now and then. So, all right, so let's get through this juicy true crime episode of the Corporate Gossip Podcast. If you have a friend that is really into true crime and is kind of sick of the death, the murder of it all, and wants to get into corporate true crime, I would say that this is the podcast episode to send to them. Today, we're going to talk about the 2019 gang stalking scandal that involves the executives at a Fortune 500 company criminally stalking a very sweet old couple. What made these executives so mad? What made them go so off the rails? Well, The couple ran a niche and relatively unknown website where they published news and commentary about the e-commerce industry. And they were buyers and sellers of collectibles. So they were like in the eBay. Remember when there used to be like eBay stores?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They were like that.
like in 40-year-old
Yeah,
version.
exactly. They were like that. But I looked at their website, and I'll get into the details later on. But you guys, like,
Wait, I don't think eBay stores actually existed. I think that was a joke.
why don't you look it up? I think they were real.
Yeah, because Jonah Hill's character is like, wait, why can't I just buy these stilettos here? She's like, no, you can bid on them on eBay. He's like, right, but I'm here, so can I just get them?
Let us know. Are eBay stores real, or did
yeah,
I
if
just
you lived
Mandela
in Southern
effect?
California,
Yeah.
maybe they did exist.
So anyway, I looked at the website. It's all still up there. I reviewed the blog posts, and let me tell you, what they wrote was incredibly unoffensive. But for some reason, and we'll make our best guess at the reason, we will do some psychoanalyzing. The fact that this unassuming couple dared to write a blog post that lightly critiqued, softly critiqued. If I got this feedback as a employee, I wouldn't even know that I was being given negative feedback. It was that unoffensive. They lightly critiqued the executives at eBay for having salaries that were 152 times that of the average worker. And they had neutral to borderline negative opinions on some of the decisions that had been made impacting sellers that were reading this blog. That was enough to make these executives lose their minds and direct their security team to stalk and harass this couple as punishment. And even worse, the fact that two of the villains of this story, the CEO and the chief communications officer at eBay, they got away with it. These two little sneaky, slippery executives, they went, whoopsie, catch me if you can, Justice Department. The security team got sentenced to jail time for their involvement in this scheme, but not us. This was a mafia level hit job. And for that reason, we got to start at the top of the pyramid with the two very vanilla looking mob bosses. Let's start with eBay CEO Devin Wenig and the chief communications officer Steve Weimer. It's going to be hard to keep these two straight because they're both mentally disturbed losers, allegedly. And to be honest, I also think they look alike. And I feel that they're both, can I say, I feel that they're both guilty? Is that like an opinion? In my opinion.
If you were on the jury.
In my opinion, they're both guilty. So for the purpose of this story, after I introduce them both, I'm just going to group them together and call them the CEO and the CCO, or the executives. So here's former CEO of eBay, Devin Wenig, and Chief Communications Officer Steve Weimer. If you're wondering what they look like townsfolk of South Park.
Yeah, you know,
They're like featureless.
You'll often call people look like thumbs. These guys really look like thumbs. Thumb brothers.
Thumb brothers. So here's what you need to know about these two. In addition to being thumb brothers, they're also alpha bros, extremely masculine. When Mark Zuckerberg's talking about increasing masculine energy in the workforce, he should look at these two. These guys did not come up through the ranks of eBay. The CEO was a lawyer and he was a former executive at Routers, and Weimer was the CCO, was a Republican spin guy.
Is that the pronunciation? Reuters?
Reuters?
Not
Routers. Reuters.
Rout.
Anyway, Weimer was a Republican spin guy, and he had been doing communication for various Republican senators. And if you know anything about Republican spin guys or any type of political spin, they are just like little sneaky guys who are not to be trusted. And these two would get on town halls and press junkets and talk about eBay's community values. Here's some of the community values, okay? People are basically good. And we encourage you to treat others the way you want to be treated. On the other hand, the way these guys were acting behind closed doors, well, let me just start by reading you a text message that the CCO sent when he was planning eBay's attack on these bloggers. You want to read that?
Hatred is a sin. I'm very sinful.
Oh, I was reading it more like a Real Housewives opening line.
Oh, okay.
Hatred.
Yeah, okay. Hatred is a sin, and I'm very sinful.
Hatred is a sin, mama, and I am very sinful. Like, who is this diva? Okay. I want to give some background on eBay too, in case you're not super familiar with this company. eBay is one of the most popular e-commerce sites, I think, in the world. It's founded back in 1995 by a French-Iranian computer guy. And it explodes in the 1990s, in the late 1990s, because of the Beanie Baby craze. Were you into Beanie Babies? I had a couple.
I didn't have Beanie Babies. I ripped the heads off your Beanie Babies.
You did. You ripped the heads off all my Barbies. But I do remember, if you're a late millennial or a Gen Xer, you remember how all these people were buying Beanie Babies, thinking that they were going to fund their kids' college tuition. They would sell them on eBay. And eBay is actually the company that brought us Peter Thiel and Elon Musk when eBay bought the company led by those two little bald freaks in 2002. I think it was PayPal. Mm-hmm. They bought it for $1.5 billion, and Peter Thiel and Elon Musk stamped their ticket into Silicon Valley society. So eBay is one of those really, I would say, quite rare, genuine marketplace disruptors. I mean, this site has enabled hobbyists, collectors, antique stealers, eBay store owners to scale their businesses and actually making a living off of their hobby. That said, the story we're about to tell isn't the first time eBay stuck its lil corporate tootsie into the seductive waters of the corporate scandal hot tub. Come on in, boys. Water's nice. And there have been several lawsuits against eBay claiming that the company knowingly profited from counterfeit goods. And there have been a lot of drama around the inventory of items available for purchase. Like, for example, a human kidney, Nazi memorabilia, artifacts stolen from the British Museum, which I'll give them a pass for that because the British stole them first.
Should we play eBay trivia?
Yeah, let's play some eBay trivia.
eBay trivia. Play
along at home.
Okay. The first question I have is, what is the most expensive item ever sold on eBay? A private jet, B, a yacht, C, a 1937 Bugatti Type 57 SC Adelante, or D, a Hollywood mansion?
I think, given the detail that you added, a Bugatti.
Oh, a Bugatti. No, that's wrong. It's actually B. Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich purchased a $168 million giga yacht via eBay in 2023. I think this guy's an oligarch.
What are the transaction fees on a $1 billion super yacht?
Yeah, I mean, you would expect super yachts to be trading hands in different ways. I got to imagine that this was a good somebody need to get rid of a yacht. Okay. What was the first ever item sold on eBay? A broken laser pointer, a used bicycle, a collectible stamp, or a Pez dispenser?
I actually do know this one. It's the laser pointer.
That's correct. In 1995, Canadian Mark Fraser purchased the laser pointer from eBay founder Pierre. I won't butcher his last name. All right. You want some pop culture? I'm not even going to give you names. I'm just going to say which celebrity famously auctioned off their own hair on eBay in 2007. I have this question worded as auctioned off their own hair. I couldn't find anything that said they did it themselves or somebody got the hair and auctioned it for them.
A verified seller.
Yeah, verified seller.
I don't know.
Okay, so if you go back in time, somebody pretty famous around them shaved their head
Britney
in
Spears.
2007. There you go, Britney Spears. According to the screenshot I have, somebody was the current bid was $5,000.
$5,000 in 2007, you could have purchased Britney Spears' hair that she shaved off in that famous paparazzi photo shoot. If you bought this hair, let us know.
It's actually in the Met now.
It's probably in the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. I wonder how much it's worth now.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's keeping track of the appreciation of that.
You don't think there's a market for that?
Well, it's probably stuck in a divorce. Two parties
Oh, yeah,
looking
that's
for it
true.
right now.
Wow, that was fascinating, Adam.
Fascinating
Thank you
stuff, yeah.
so much for that.
That's what I bring to this show.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. And now you can kind of get an idea of what type of market eBay was creating. The scandal that we're talking about in this episode is not necessarily, oopsie, we still sold Nazi memorabilia or a human kidney or Britney Spears' hair. It's on a completely different level. And it all started when the executives, particularly the CEO, were feeling some pressure. Because despite the fact that eBay had been growing since 2005, by the time we get to like 2017, I mean, there's so many other places where you can get stuff like this. There's a million other marketplaces. There's Etsy, there's Amazon. Like the e-commerce space has been pretty busy over those past 15 years. And eBay, who had once been a Silicon Valley darling, gets hit with corporate kryptonite. An activist investor deck. Bing, pew, 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 pew. And we've covered these before, but effectively it's a very public effort for an outside investor who has a very strong point of view to say, hey, eBay board. Adam, why don't you give them the old heavyweights chant?
You suck, you suck, you suck.
Exactly like that. That's basically what the investor deck is saying. You suck, and here's why. They go line by line and tell the executives why they're doing so badly at their job. And it purposely turns up the heat on these executives who, in the eyes of the activist investor, have become complacent with shareholder money. So the CEO, who this came out in 2019, he had been in place since 2015, was probably pissing his pants when he read through the document. And here's some highlights. So, quote, over the past 5 years, eBay's total return has been more than 100% lower. Doesn't take an MBA to know that that's pretty bad, than its peers. And most disappointing is that this significant underperformance has occurred despite a strong market performance. As the broader internet universe has flourished, especially e-commerce peers, eBay's stock has floundered. So they're basically saying, what the fuck have you been doing, CEO, for the past 4 years? Because everybody else is just, you know, pulling in the money, and you are sitting on your thumb. And what they don't call out specifically actually in this deck, but I will, is that you would never know that eBay was underperforming if you just looked at the CEO's salary, which had increased millions of dollars every year. So in 2015, he becomes CEO and he's at $14.5 million. The next year it goes up to 15.9, and the next year it goes up to 17.5. So I don't know about you, but when I do work bad at my job, I actually don't get a raise. But
Feels like pretty low-hanging fruit. Who was the activist investor? Who were the activist investors? I feel like that's like boilerplate stuff.
Right.
All right, we got this. We got shitty things here, shitty things
they
there.
normally do include that. It might have just not been in the slides that I saw, but you're right. I mean, normally they call out the fact that
It's like company performance on one, CEO pay.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
something's off here.
So
These aren't supposed to connect.
wait a second. So, and investors are upset because the CEO had made a promise that when he took the role, he would reinvent the company to compete with Amazon, to compete with all, Facebook Marketplace and all these other competitors. But by reinventing, he actually meant he was going to do stock buybacks and layoffs, which is what he did. And then he looked at them and he said, when we were at the Fogo J Chow with the consultants, they told me that the layoffs and buybacks would work. Why do these investors still hate me? And then he kind of stood up from the table and he has beads of sweat bubbling off his face. And the boardroom begins to darken. And a thought occurs to him. He's like, wait, if I keep being bad at my job, are you guys gonna fire me? It's not supposed to work like that. Somebody bring in the consultants. Can you tell that I started improv again last night?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm really getting into the character.
Wow. I just saw an interview with Timothy Chalamet and Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes. I see it.
Oh, you think I'm giving Big Chalamet?
Big Shal.
Well, I did it because you guys told me that I wasn't as good as going with the flow. And I did it over the summer, and now I'm doing it again. And let me know. All right, you ready for the first piece of corporate gossip? That was a fairly long intro, but now we're going to get into it.
What? Only one just now?
Yeah.
Wow. You
So-
fed me so much.
I know. Corporate gossip number 1 is cool guy Devin is not having fun as CEO of eBay in 2019. So let's put ourselves in the CEO's acid wash jeans for a moment, shall we? You see him here at
Look at those. That guy shops at Buckle.
big buckle guy.
This guy is keeping Buckle in
Giving
business.
true religion. So, okay, you're CEO. You got your tightest acid wash jeans on, and you're 4 years into the job, and you're being publicly shamed by an activist investor. And this is like, if you want to put yourself in this mindset, it's like the corporate equivalent of being an influencer and having a full snark subreddit dedicated to you. And so when we put it in that terms, we can think of people who fit into that category. Think Tinks or Serena fucking Kerrigan or Magookin and friends. And what happens to you when you're insecure or you aren't a fully realized person and you're being publicly ridiculed is that sometimes you tend to lose your mind. And I don't say this to excuse their behavior, but we do this because it's a peek behind the curtains. The vibes at eBay when this activist investor deck came out were dark. These executives are fighting for their jobs. And a normal person might, take a step back, think about your next best move, read the activist investor deck, take in the negative feedback. I can kind of relate to this. It hurts my feelings sometimes when I see negative feedback about our podcast on the comments and stuff. And for the most part, even if it's very well stated and totally legitimate, it still makes me feel sad because I feel like I've disappointed our listeners in some way. However, I can, I have enough of an understanding of myself and enough self-confidence that I can read that comment and be like, okay, this is a valid critique, or, we can actually look at this, we can make it better. We're constantly evolving, all that kind of stuff. But I do think it takes a certain level of personal understanding and confidence in yourself, and also people who love you to be able to take that in.
Yeah. And what about a guy like Devin Wenig, who's been entrusted by eBay to steer the company against pillars like Jeff Bezos and this new e-commerce world, right? He's got to have a ton of experience in the marketplace. He does, right?
I don't think he does.
No, he doesn't. Because Devin Wenig came from Reuters. He worked at Reuters for 20 years. And if you don't know what Reuters is, it's a media company. He headed up Reuters Markets, their financial news division. And in 2011, he would join eBay ahead of their global marketplaces. And after only 5 years, they said, you know what, Devin? Here's the keys. Drive this fucker right into a wall.
That's insane.
Give it to a guy with less experience. You understand markets, great. And it's unclear if you understand market. You report on markets.
Well, he wasn't a reporter.
No, but
he ran a
get
media company.
that he would
The
understand.
media landscape is way different than the e-commerce landscape. What am I missing here? And 5 years is not enough time. This is a huge company. And so I think what you're saying is they were setting him up for failure.
Yeah.
So when you have all this pressure on you, you might not be you don't feel good about yourself. And then he probably had some internal feelings of am I doing good enough? And then this activist investor deck comes, and he probably has tons of people on his team who are saying, you're doing great, Devin. I mean, look, his salary had been increased every year, which I guess would mean you're doing great, right?
I heard this from a friend of mine. They were saying that their boss is not capable of doing the job that he was signed up for. And there's some writing on the wall when they're working with external partners. The partners were like, was this a big step up from his last role. And that's what I imagine is happening with like Devin Wenig's coworkers. They're like, was this like a big step up for you? Or like, are you prepared for this?
That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, clearly he didn't have his wits about him. He's not able to read the activist investor deck and be like, this is good feedback. I should take it into consideration. So instead, he said, actually, I'm not a bad CEO. And the reason that we have these activist investor decks on my tail now is because of these two niche bloggers who are starting a campaign to take me down.
Mm-hmm. Warren Buffett wakes up every morning, has a coffee, and then opens up the Steiner's. Steiner's blog.
What do we have on LiveJournal? What do we have on Zynga today? Where are they talking shit about me? I mean, genuinely, this is like when somebody is. I would put Devin Wenig, the CEO, in the same camp as I would put Lisa Barlow right now in Salt Lake City. Lisa Barlow is terminally online, and she will go into people's Instagram DMs and like, if anybody has written a negative comment about her, she'll go and be like, well, you're really ugly, so I don't really like think that you have anything to say that could actually impact me because I'm Lisa Barlow. That was pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Do you know what I mean? When you're terminally online and you don't actually take a step back to reflect on yourself, and you already feel like, I think Lisa Barlow feels that her snowflake is in jeopardy, just like Devin Wenig's snowflake is in jeopardy, right? So he's like, it's not actually my fault. It's these niche bloggers. If it wasn't for them, nobody would think I was a bad CEO. So to see how paranoid and unhinged this behavior is, let's just take a look visually at these evil bloggers. And remember, I think some people forget who are listening to this podcast that yes, we do put these pictures up on the YouTube, but if you're not listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, you can click the link in the links below and in the podcast description, and you can go to the Substack, and that's where you can see all these pictures. So what you're seeing right now is an incredibly sweet couple who are surrounded by their collectibles and a, I don't know, 2005 Dell computer with the little...
Oh, yeah, with that little SIM card in it.
Nub in the middle.
Oh, I thought
maybe it says ThinkPad. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, they just look incredibly sweet. They look like if they invited me to be like, hey, we're making a casserole. Like, do you want to come over for dinner? I'd be like, yeah, I'm there. It's probably, their house is probably so nice and cozy. They probably keep it warm. I bet you their couches are really, nice and comfortable.
Yeah, I bet you David gives her complete control of the thermostat.
Oh, totally. He's like, whatever makes you happy,
sure.
honey. It's okay.
I'm boiling, but whatever.
Yeah. Like, genuinely, it's nice to see. They just seem really nice. You'd be happy to run into them. And then here's their website. And as you can see, it's very, very 2005. And if I were talking to Devin Wenig, the CEO, I would say, girl, no analysts are reading this website. I promise you. You're delusional. Take a Xanax. Calm down. But, I know when I'm feeling desperate or anxious or angry, I'm more likely to make a regrettable decision, right? And I can imagine if I had a group of friends, instead of calming me down, but egging me on, like the CEO Devin Wenig did, then if I were going to make a bad decision, it would be an even more diabolical bad decision. And then if the structures around me were set up, imagine if you were like, I'm going to make a bad decision, and then someone was like, here's a credit card with $1 million on it. like you better watch out. And also, here's an entire workforce that will carry out your plan for your bad decision. Nobody's checking this guy. And so, do you need a break? And so, on May 31st, 2019, the CEO had enough of these blog posts. And he texted the CCO with these words: take her down. And the CCO responded, we're going to crush this lady. That's what his voice. Yeah, he does give that voice. Here is a screenshot from the 60 Minutes documentary on this case, which is great. We'll link it again in the show notes. Then the CCO sends a message to eBay's security team. And, you'll see momentarily, the security team was led by a deranged, balding man who genuinely thought his life was a movie. He thought he was living in Goodfellas. Mm-hmm. So then the CCO sent a message to the security team that said,
"The signers are acting out of malice, and anything we can do to solve it must be explored, whatever it takes."
He's really frantic.
Yeah,
I'd say a couple of 5
in
deep
my
breaths
mind.
would
That's
do
how
it
I've
good.
channeled him.
Yeah. These guys are definitely talking out of their throats.
Yeah.
They're not taking any deep breaths. So 8 days later, the eBay security team flies across the country from Silicon Valley to suburban Boston and started their stalking campaign. Pulled up at the Steiner's house and just was like, we're ready to make these people's lives hell. So the CEO was going on sabbatical for a month. Obviously, he wasn't that worried about losing his job. And the security team, along with the CCO, promised that threat would be neutralized by the time he got home.
That's
What's crazy?
the CEO taking a sabbatical for a month.
After you get
I've
hit
worked
with
at a
an-
lot of companies. I've never heard of a CEO taking a sabbatical for an entire month. Maybe it's one of those things that's just not talked about. But like,
Yeah, I've never.
that's crazy.
While you're hit by an inactivist investor deck is wild, and it makes me think that he was like, yeah, I don't know, unless he felt like, was he so off the hinges that people were like, you need to go to Italy?
Yeah. I
don't
don't know. I've never heard of anything like that.
I have never heard of anything like that either. I know they mentioned it in the New York Times article. I was like, are we not going to touch on this? All right, corporate gossip number 2. The Sopranos meets Beavis and Butthead. So I want to introduce you to the eBay security team. If the executives were the mob bosses, then the eBay security team were the capo, or the foot soldiers. And the global security and resilience team was led by a guy named James Bow. I think that's how you pronounce it. But he's a former CIA operative. And this other woman, who I couldn't find much on, her name is Stephanie Pop, but it looks like the internet has been scrubbed of her presence outside of this case. Anyway, the two of them ran what appears to be a very toxic work environment. They referred to themselves as mom and dad. Fucking yikes, dude. If my boss called herself mom. Here's a quote from this Times article, and they had talked to an employee who worked for them. So they say, Dad could be kind of scary. Mr. Bao was a stocky, middle-aged guy with thinning hair who loved to talk and did not like to be questioned. He would often say that he used to work for the CIA. Sometimes he said his wife was still working for the CIA right now. Once he found a knife on a barbecue grill on campus. He said a deranged person could have used it to hurt somebody. And then he proceeded to stab a chair. The knife stayed there. And it was never removed. It was like a warning that your boss could stab you if he wanted.
Yeah, that I'm the deranged guy.
Yeah, he was deranged. He'd also, like, I told you, he thought his life was a movie, but he would always be pulling up YouTube clips for some reason and showing them to his employees. He'd pull up the scene from American Gangster where Denzel Washington executes a man in front of a crowd to make a point. Or a clip from The Wolf of Wall Street where the feds are investigating shady deeds, but none of the perpetrators can recall a thing. Like, just basically being like, you need to give me loyalty, and if anybody comes up to you, like, you need to lie for me. Or the bit from Meet the Fockers where Robert De Niro is like, is that who it is? Is it Robert De Niro?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is like, this is my circle of trust.
Yeah. I think Bao was using some of the things that he learned at the farm and the CIA. Like, oh wait, no, never mind. That was DeVry. Like, he went to theater camp at DeVry.
Like, what did you? Yeah, were you in the CIA theater division? Like, what the hell is this? So remember, most of the people who worked for him were really young, and they were contractors, and they were not full-time yet, and they were hoping to get a full-time gig. And also, most of them hadn't worked for a corporate office before. So this is kind of like incest. When you get really young people in an environment where their behavior or what the boss is asking from them is not normal, sometimes they don't know it's not normal. And they're motivated to keep their job. So they're going to do whatever boss says. And he was intimidating. He would fire people at the drop of a hat for like chewing on a pen or not smiling. And I point out this environment to say that his team of inexperienced people was led by an unhinged man who thought his life was a movie, was already on the brim when the executives team at eBay gave them the signal to strike. Here are texts between the CCO and Bao. So Adam's going to be the CCO, and I'll tell you how I envision Bao.
She is a biased. Yeah.
No, do the first one. She is a bias. Don't do so much.
She is a biased troll who needs to get burned down. Hey, copy that. I got a plan B. I will put it in motion. It's going to take 2 weeks. I'll embrace managing any bad fallout. We need to stop her.
I mean, listen, we do not look as cute as these guys, and we say a lot worse shit, which makes me think, like, are we ever going to be stalked? Is anyone going to harass us from one of these companies that we cover?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it'll happen. I don't know. I mean, oof.
No.
I don't know. I mean, stalked? No. Cease and desist? Can't wait.
Oh, my God. I'm going to pull a Lisa Rinna. Ooh, you're so angry. You ready for corporate gossip number 3?
Yeah.
Corporate gossip number 3 is extremely scary and incredibly stupid. So by early 2019, eBay's security team was in full force, making life hell for the Steiners. So here's what they did while they were over in Boston. The Steiners' house was sent several frightening packages, including live cockroaches, spiders, a funeral wreath, a Halloween mask with a bloody pig face, and a manual on surviving the death of a spouse, which is like a full-on death threat.
Yeah.
They received porno magazines,
Yum.
including an issue of Hustler, Barely Legal, touting eye-popping 18-year-olds. That was sent to their neighbors' houses with the Steiners' name on them.
And their neighbors came over and said, hey, you dropped this. Nice.
There was a Twitter account created mocking and doxing the Steiners. That same Twitter account sent them threatening DMs to stop posting about eBay. And they said, when you hurt our business, you hurt our families. People will do anything to protect family. And you can tell that they're trying to like cover their tracks because it's spelled WENU, the letter U, business, BIZNESS. So it's like, I bet you they're thinking like, a corporate executive would never talk like this.
No.
I'm going to make them think that it's a mafioso. So there was Craigslist posts with the Steiners' addresses posted saying that they were either selling household furniture or hosting BDSM parties. But either one, like people would show up at their house. And a pizza delivery driver brought 70 pizzas to the Steiners' house, which they didn't order.
Paid for, though.
Yeah, paid for. Which is like interesting.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, okay.
If you're going to send me pizza, if you're going to stalk me with pizza, I'll take Andrew Belucci's.
Yeah. If you 70
Not Andrew Belucci's. Belucci's, not.
That'd probably only be like 40 pizzas because there's probably a budget, right? Is it 70 good pizzas or 70 okay pizzas?
If you send me 70 Belucci's pizzas, then I'm like,
what do you
must
need?
Be a billionaire.
Well, what do you need? Yeah, and what do you need? Like, let's talk this out. We could figure this out if we could keep this arrangement going.
So the Steiners were physically stalked. Like I said, Bao's team flew to Boston, where the Steiners live. They drove to their house in a rental car, and they tried to put a GPS tracker on the car, but the garage door was shut. Then a team member went to a hardware store and bought a pry bar and gloves.
And put it on the company card.
Like, oh my God. They really do think that their life is a movie.
Can I have a pry bar, some gloves?
A tarp.
Are these fingerprint? These don't do fingerprints, right? A tarp?
Suitcase.
Yeah, suitcase. Okay. How much Clorox you got back there? This is suspicious. No. I'm just
doing
gonna order
some simple stalking. I mean, home renovations.
Do you want pizza? I got like 70 in my trunk.
So Bao is sending the CCO updates on his progress. Remember, they wanted this threat neutralized by the time the CEO came back. And the CCO is very pleased. Here's what he says.
I want to see.
No, I want to see.
I want to see ashes as long as it takes, whatever it takes.
I mean, you can imagine what the Steiners are going through at this point. They called it psychologically damaging, which feels like an understatement. They're not sleeping. They're anxious. Like, reality Von Teese was psychologically damaging. This is criminal level torture. And the Steiners got the police involved. They were able to take a couple pictures of the car that was very obviously stalking them. And I'll say this team was so bad at stalking. And it seemed, according to the reports that I read, incredibly easy for the suburban Boston police to just like run their plates and be like, oh, this is registered to an eBay corporate card. We went to the pizza store where you got the pizza parlor where you got these pizzas, registered to a gift card purchased in Silicon Valley. Dumbass. So,
yeah, you got to make the cops' job a little bit harder.
No. Again, the texting here and just the bad work, I'm just like, dude, like, it's unreal. So the police follow their car to a hotel in Boston where the eBay team is staying. And they're in the hotel lobby, and Bao and his team see the police in the lobby, and they're like, fuck. So they go up to their rooms. Bao's like, get in your room, shut the door. And one of the team members who was there said that Mr. Bao sat on the couch and played a clip from the 2003 comedy Old School, in which a husband answers the door to a fellow who says, I'm here for the gangbang. He kept watching it over and over, smiling and laughing and telling the team member to lighten up. Like, clearly that's where they got the idea to post on Craigslist that the Steiners were getting BDSM parties.
Oh, you think James Bao has any original thought in his mind? Like, everything he gets. And then later he was like, we're going streaking to the pavilion, to the quad. We are streaking, you guys, all the way through eBay.
I know what will make us feel better. Jell-O fight! So, like I said, these guys are bad at this, really bad at this. And corporate gossip number 4 is, here's a crime lesson for you. The only thing worse than incriminating yourselves via text message is asking via text message for your co-conspirators to delete incriminating text messages. How many episodes have we seen this in? The most recent one, I remember the Astros episode where Lou now is like, delete everything, but nobody else does. This is a how do I want it? An embarrassment. Was James Bao, he was tried in Boston for this? Yes, I think so. Probably in the same courtroom where Whitey Bulger, and you got this fucking guy, James Bao, and a guy who's like, Winter Hell Gang. Like, James Bao wanted to be Whitey Bulger so bad, but he was like a 2-cent Bulger. Seriously.
Like, all right, what's on the docket today?
Like,
we got Bulger and Bao.
When he went to prison, I bet you he got so much shit. Like, bro, you are embarrassing. God, read a book. So the FBI and the Boston police and eBay's lawyers start looking into the case, and Bao is freaking out. And honestly, relatable. He asks his team, he's like, we got to cover this up. So their first strategy is to do a white knight strategy where they actually called the Steiners and they said, oh, I heard you were getting stalked and harassed. That sounds terrible. Do you need our help? We're the eBay security team. And then they would like email each other and be like, hey, I just talked to the Steiners. They're being stalked and harassed. It sounds really scary and terrible. Like, we will help them, so that they could send that to the police and be like, what? That wasn't us. Like, we were trying to help them. Then for hours, prosecutors say that the team workshopped stories to mislead Boston authorities. At one point, they considered enlisting a friendly cop, so a cop that Bao must have known, in the Bay Area Police Department to provide falsified security camera footage. Which, that's like a serious crime. It's not just saying like, hey, don't say anything if somebody calls you. It's like, let's
doctor
create
some footage.
Evidence. Yeah. Anyway, so Bao is like, shit. The CEO is coming back from Italy in like a week. and now the eBay lawyers are on my tail and the FBI. And so he messages the CCO and he goes, hey, let me do my voice. Hey, if there's any way to get some top cover, that would be great. And Weimer just leaves him on red. And I mean, I assume that Weimer knew at this point, like, he could not get involved. It's not like he was just going to text back and be like, yeah, sure. I mean, it was I who asked you to do this campaign.
It was I who asked you.
So he was just like, Bow, never heard of him. And he just leaves this guy out in the cold, which is so fucked up. So Bow told his team to lie to investigators, obviously, delete incriminating text messages, obviously. But the eBay lawyers had enough information at that point to fire them all. And the global resilience team and mom and dad were all fired without severance. And Steve Weimer was fired. And when Devin Wenig came back, the CEO, they put him in the boardroom and they said, you're donezo. It's over for you. But here, this should help. Here's $57 million.
Oh, great. I will eat tons of pasta in Italy when I go back.
Back to Italy. The CEO did give a statement. He said that he had done nothing wrong. Quote, there was no direction, no knowledge, no private understanding, no tacit approval ever. I was just speaking off the cuff. He's talking about when he's talking about the text message where he says, destroy her. In another statement, Mr. Weimer said, this is the CCO, that he would never condone or participate in any of the activities directed against the Steiners. He's like, when I said whatever it takes, when I said burn her down, I meant like...
It's all figurative. Like, how do you walk back those comments in text?
Well, they did,
given
clearly.
the context. No, I know, but how do you try? Like, how do you try?
To have the gall to be like, I didn't mean it literally. I meant it like... burn the house down, like invite them to a party.
Yeah, you know what I mean, right?
Like the roof is on fire. Anyway, a year later, the U.S. Department of Justice had enough evidence to charge 6 members of Steve Bow's team, the global resiliency team,
the interns
and the employees. So there was mom and dad, and then 4 of the employees who were contract workers, with conspiracy to commit cyberstalking and conspiracy to tamper with witnesses. Here's a quote from the Massachusetts U.S. Attorney. I'll do my best, Boston. This was a determined, systematic effort by senior employees of a major company to destroy the lives of a couple in Boston, all because they published content that company executives did not like. For a while, they succeeded, psychologically devastating these victims for weeks as they desperately tried to figure out what they were going to do and stop it. What was going on and stop it. I think I've done better, but there wasn't a trial because everybody pled guilty. James Bow was sentenced to a little under 5 years in prison. Everybody else got either a few years probation or up to a little over a year in prison. You might be wondering, why did the others on the security team go along with this? And here's a quote from one of them. They go, "It's easy to say, why didn't I leave? But in the moment, I was terrified and stuck. I am so sorry. I regret playing even a small role here. If I could go back in time and prevent the Steiners from experiencing this in any way, I would do it in a heartbeat." And like, compare her statement to what the CEO and CFO say. So even though they were fired, CEO and CCO were not charged. An internal eBay investigation found that, quote, they didn't know that criminal activities would follow their instructions. When the CCO said,
on Monday, I read the charges along with everyone else and was shocked and outraged.
I put a picture here of Nancy Grace when she goes, "Oh, I cannot believe they did that." So in terms of consequences of eBay, right, the Justice Department agreed to a deferred prosecution agreement with a penalty of $3 million, which is pennies.
Yeah.
eBay probably makes $3 million in like a half a day. Can you look up what eBay's revenue is? 2.6 billion. So
by $7 million a day.
yeah. So I was right. eBay makes $3 million by lunchtime in a half a day. Pacific lunchtime. This is very common with corporate crimes. We saw it with Boeing. We saw it with PG&E. And basically the executives admit to wrongdoing and they say, we're not going to do anything else bad for a couple years at least. And they're not prosecuted. I already mentioned that the CEO gets a $57 million golden parachute. After this, he was appointed to the board of directors of General Motors, which pays $337,000 a year for going to a couple meetings, and the board of directors of Salesforce, which I'm sure pays somewhere around there.
Yeah, him and McConaughey. Oh.
So here's David Wenig's, the CEO.
Hey, Matthew, I got to tell you about a time when I harassed and ruined the lives of this really cute Boston couple.
If you know Matthew McConaughey, ask him. I put a pig head on there. So here's...
We should put that in one of the Salesforce commercials. I really think that would play.
So Devin Wenig's Wikipedia page, I put a screenshot of the categories. You want to read them?
Okay, so early life, career, recognition, I missed something. Cyber stalking incident.
It's a full-on category on his Wikipedia page. I mean, that feels like a punishment at least.
Yeah, that is a punishment.
Yeah, like...
Yeah, he probably goes in there and like tries to delete it.
I should, if anybody knows how to work Wikipedia and can tell me how many times that has been attempted to be deleted, I'd actually really like to know. So the CCO is currently, as of today, the head of the San Jose Boys and Girls Club. I've seen it happen before where a company will hire somebody with a checkered past. And when people ask them, they've said, oh, I've talked to him and he promises me that he has changed.
What? You don't believe in second chances?
Oh my God, you don't. Wow. Okay. In the words of Jax Taylor, you're no angel, sweetheart.
I do just want to remind you, he was never charged for these offenses.
Total exoneration. He wasn't charged, and he gave me $300,000. I mean, $300,000. I mean, his word that he was never going to do anything bad like this ever again.
And why not Steve Weimer? I mean, so what? He put a pig head on somebody's doorstep. So what?
So
he gave a guy's wife a widow program.
So what? He death threat somebody. He gave somebody a death threat.
I'll tell you what else.
Who among us hasn't?
You know, have you ever given 70 pizzas to a random stranger?
Yeah, exactly. That was a nice thing that they did, actually.
Yeah. Porn. I love porn. I take that as a breath of fresh air. All right.
Oh, you're not gonna, because what? He watches porn. Oh, you're too woke for porn now.
And we support people who are innocent of crimes that they definitely committed. Allegedly.
God damn, it's crazy. And I mean, obviously it won't be shocking for you to hear that Steve Weimer is in deep in the local San Jose political scene. He's best friends.
Oh yeah, my best friends. Those are my guys. San Jose team. They give me jobs. They look past my checkered past. Oh man, they love me over there.
He's best friends with the mayor and the former mayor. Who's now a California congressman. There's tons of pictures of them on Twitter, like going to murder mystery parties and galas.
Oh, yeah, I killed the mayor with a hammer in the reading room.
And so this is crazy. The Boys and Girls Club, when they announced that Steve Weimer was going to be CEO, they go, the search is over. We are thrilled to announce our next president and CEO, Steve Weimer. We look forward to seeing the impact he will make on thousands of youth across Silicon Valley. # whatever it takes.
Huh.
Isn't that interesting?
I was looking at # be the key, open the door.
Yeah, be the key, open the door. But the other hashtag is whatever it takes, which is the text that Weimer sent to Bao. Oh, did you not make that? Yeah.
Wow.
The text that Weimer, like the incriminating text, was saying do whatever it takes.
Deep cut.
Do you think that they did that on purpose? Or do you think it was just a coincidence?
I don't know. I mean, maybe.
I know.
That's really bad.
That's
I have
dark.
no idea.
So here's the Steiners now. I will say they posted a message on their blog, and I'll post it in the show notes. And the comments are so nice. So like, it's very clear that the Steiners are very well supported by their community, and we support you too, Steiners. They're moving forward with a civil RICO case. I did not even know you could do a civil RICO case. So that's interesting. Against eBay, including the executives, Wenig and Weimer. I mean, maybe Wenig could cut them, like, I don't know, a couple mil out of his $57 million Golden Parachute if he hasn't spent that all already on meatballs. The trial date is set for soon, March 2025. So I will be looking into that. They're seeking $12 million.
Business trip to Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
We're asking for funds for a business trip to Silicon Valley.
I think it's probably in Boston.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's
would
where
be
the crime,
nice.
or maybe not. I don't know. It'd be, where is it? Where the crime is directed from, or is it where the crime took place? Anyway, here's what they say. This is the Steiners. We are fighting to ensure that no corporation ever feels that the option exists for them to squash a person's First Amendment rights. As victims of a despicable crimes meant to destroy our lives and our livelihood, we felt it was vital to do everything in our power to make sure that such a thing never happens to anyone else. I want shirts with these guys' faces on it. Like them, David Smalley, who stood up to the Koch brothers. I'm just really proud. Like, these are the people who I think about where I'm
Don't
just
forget
kind
our
of
boy
like,
John
John who?
from GM. Or from GE.
John Flannery.
John Flannery.
But these are in a different category to me. That's like just a CEO, like, who I don't hate and I actually really like. We called him our alpha on the shelf. But I'm talking about like normal people who stand up to executives at powerful companies, which, you know what's, anyway. So are you ready for the takeaways?
Take away.
So if you're new to this podcast, maybe you're thinking like, how did Devin Wenig and Steve Weimer get away with this and everybody else went to jail? There's this book called The Chicken Shit Club where it basically explains the fact that, like, ever since Enron, the Justice Department has been really hesitant to prosecute any executives or companies for wrongdoing. And because of that, it has made, like, normalized a lot of this criminal behavior. And they think that, like, you have to think that these executives thought that they could get away with it. And they did. And yeah, it's just, you know, a lot of these corporations think corporate crime pays. Like, even if I have to pay the penalty, I'll still make more money doing the crime than I will having to pay the penalty. So there's this Virginia law professor who says that over 50% of the most serious fraud and larceny culprits were recidivists. So basically, these corporate criminals would do the crime, get caught, and then do it again. That recidivism rate is about the same as robbery and firearm offenders and higher than drug traffickers. And then one other thing I want to say that I think is interesting is a lot of people, when they want to snark on our content, they'll say something along the lines of, you know, you couldn't handle being the pressure of being a CEO. Like, you don't know how hard it is. And I'm like, okay, it seems like a lot of people can't handle the pressure. Like, clearly these guys could not handle the pressure. So maybe we fix the structures. Maybe we don't put so much pressure on them to improve the stock price so that they go out and terrorize a couple.
Because we're not anti-CEO. We're anti-CEO doing bad shit.
I'm anti the systems. I'm anti this entire, like, this feeling of, like, we have to improve the stock price no matter what, because a lot of the ways that people go out about and do that is fraudulent.
Yeah, anti the system, but also, like, there are CEOs out there who are not in a publicly traded company, I guess. We're not saying that all CEOs are bad. We're just calling out the behavior and the set of circumstances they put themselves in to make bad decisions.
Of course, not all CEOs, but also the system that's in place is fundamentally broken.
Yeah, I don't know why the justice system wouldn't have gone the distance on this one, because really, like, there was no upside to this crime. There were two very clear victims whose lives were ruined, right? And you can see that, and you can see the emotional abuse and whatever else. Whereas with most of the crimes that we talk about, there, well, in the case of Boeing, there is death, right? But there's also, I hate to say this, but money associated with that. There is no money associated with this eBay thing. Like, there was no, well,
financial,
if there's no financial upside. If we do, it was only downside.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, why not just be like, whoa, just because you have all the you have the resources to be able to do this doesn't mean you can do it. So
I'm surprised too that the shareholders didn't sue. Like, the Justice Department settled with them, but like, why isn't there a shareholder lawsuit? Like, I would be very
for like the cost.
Oh, the cost associated, the
PR.
Like, there's, I'm shocked that the shareholders didn't take them to court in Delaware and say, like, there's no way that stalking is approved in the eBay bylaws.
Yeah. It's just interesting. Like, of all the cases DOJ would choose to drop and settle.
They didn't
like,
drop. They settled it.
Sorry,
yeah.
settle. Why not this one? It seemed like the evidence was so clear. And, like, I would have let James Bowe, text for another year. Who knows what he would have come up with, right? He was just... There was so much evidence.
I know.
And what you don't want to happen is that this happens again where there is financial upside, perhaps.
Yeah.
Say there's a journalist at the Times or the Journal who, it could be very much like a mafia situation. If you talk, this will happen. You put somebody in fear for their life or their family lives.
Well, the good thing about being at the Times or the Wall Street Journal is they have lawyers and they have their own security. So, like, if you're a reporter and again, this is why protecting journalists and, there's one thing to say about like citizen journalists on X or citizen journalists on Substack. But in the case that some of these CEOs get angry and decide to target them, they don't have protections. We don't have protections. You and I do have no protection right now. If somebody were to stalk and harass us, we would have to go to the, NYPD. And who knows whether they would, whatever. We would have to take it upon ourselves to get ourselves help. But people who are journalists, who are working for papers, they have lawyers. They have, support systems in place to protect them. And that's why we need to support journalism. Find an outlet that you trust. It doesn't have to be the Washington Post. It doesn't have to be the Wall Street Journal. It doesn't have to be the New York Times. It could be your local paper. Like, go visit your local paper. Like, meet the reporters. See what the kind of stuff that they're reporting on. And I think that level of support can help us fight back against these corporations who decide that our lives, they're not that important. They can, if they want, they can stalk and harass us, because they're upset.
Yeah, but they got to pay Patreon. I want my monthly dues.
Who, the executives?
Yeah, the executive. If you want to stalk me.
Yeah.
I'll put all my information out on Patreon.
Yeah. If you want to stalk us, we put all of our information on Patreon. And that's a good point. So let's wrap the episode here before we move into the good news section. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so on Patreon. Over on Patreon, you get 2 extra episodes a month where Adam and I talk about hot topics. And we set the Patreon payments at $3.50 a month. We kind of went back and forth. Did we want to put stuff behind a paywall? Do we not? But at the end of the day, we want there to be like a safe space for us to talk about these kind of things without trolls, because we do get some trolls. And it helps us support the podcast because, as you guys know, we don't have any advertisers. We're completely community sponsors, and we do have expenses. All of our subscriptions, which really add up, our studio time. And so that just helps us pay the bills. And if you want to follow us on TikTok, you can do so at corporategossippod.com. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can do so at Corporate Gossip Pod for both. Send us an email, Becca@nighttoast.com or Adam@nighttoast.com. And if you want to film your own podcast go to burrowhousecreative.com. That's Mike's podcast studio where we're filming out now.
Yep.
And anything else? You ready to wrap it? Thanks, Adam. Thanks for powering through. I know you're not feeling well.
I know. You know when your boss tells you, you have to be into work,
I know,
and you're
I'm
like,
sorry.
I'm sick. That was you today.
I know, I'm sorry. But we already did, to be fair, we did push this a couple days because you were feeling even more sick on Monday. So I appreciate it. And hopefully I don't catch whatever you have, but I will be
That would suck because we're going on vacation.
Yeah.
We're taking a trip on the road, kids.
Yeah, so if you're on the Patreon next week, you're going to see a different background from us because we're going to be on vacation. Okay, let's move to the good news of the episode, shall we? So this is our good news segment. Thanks to our good news correspondent, Elizabeth Liu. She found this story about tribal lenders and the tribal lending industry. And so I'm going to read her report now. We've helped more than 400,000 people experience a smarter way to borrow is displayed on a bold, large font on the website of the tribal lender, Big Picture Loans. There are a few dozen federally recognized tribes across America that engage in some form of online lending. Native American tribes form alliances with loan operators to offer short-term consumer loans where you can apply online and be approved within 24 hours. The only caveat is the interest rates for these loans can range anywhere from 200 to 800%. These loans target individuals with poor credit who need money fast, like Bobby J. Williams, who's a sheet metal worker and father of 4 from Rhode Island. After contracting COVID, he took out several loans, including 2 tribal loans. 2 years later, Williams filed for bankruptcy. Although many states have caps on interest rates, tribal lenders argue that their sovereign immunity allowed them to abide by federal laws that have no cap on interest rates. Online tribal lenders have spent $1.3 million on lobbying to prevent federal regulation, and the FTC has exerted few resources into regulating the industry. So the burden falls on individual states to protect consumers from predatory loan practices. In 6 states, public and private attorneys have taken on the burden and successfully eliminated the operation of tribal loans in their respective states. Over the past decade, complaints and bankruptcy filings from online lenders in these states have reduced significantly. Since 2019, there have been at least $2.9 billion in canceled loans and more than $360 million in restitution from class action suits. Just recently, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison filed a consent agreement in which a Montana tribe agreed to cease doing business in that state. Ellison's effort add to the increasing case law restricting the practice of online tribal lending. Many attorneys, including Ellison, are willing to share their knowledge and help other states fight tribal lenders. As more states add to the increasing precedent, the influence and damage of tribal lending will likely wane and someday cease to exist. So that's great.
I didn't know anything about tribal loans.
I had no idea. That was totally new for me. I had no.
I'm just looking it up now. Wow, how
this is
predatory.
ProPublica. This is that's where she got the article from.
Okay, yeah. It reminds me a lot of payday loans and check cashing places.
It is. It basically is.
And like Bitcoin ATMs.
So probably somebody just wanted to exploit the fact that these like sovereign, like if you put up a business in this sovereign area, you can kind of like extort from people.
Yeah.
Because you're not subject to a lot of the regulations that govern these payday loan places. And yeah, the worst part about this type of scheme is it targets vulnerable people who really need money, and it's really scary. And if you are in a position that you need help, I would really encourage you to reach out to your local mutual aid. There's lots of mutual aid places that have been popping up over the past couple of years, specifically in COVID. I know I'm involved in one of them in my neighborhood. I think people are just really thinking about like, how can we create solidarity? Like, I hope that we can get to a place over the next couple of years where people feel comfortable asking their neighbors for loans, and rather than going to like a tribal lender. So, wouldn't that be nice? Anyway, again, maybe that's delusional. But what choice do I have, right? Got to be optimistic.
So the optimism is that tribal loans are going away.
Yes.
Great.
So somebody has addressed this.
Yes. Next for Bitcoin ATMs and
Yeah, please.
Check cashing. I actually know somebody who banks that stuff, and it's challenging.
Yeah.
His job is challenging.
That's interesting. Okay. You ready to wrap it? Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks to our good news correspondent. If you have a good news idea and you want to email, I will put the link to her email in the show notes, and you can email our good news correspondent and share something. It doesn't have to be something that this one, like, we don't have to have an article. It can be something that you know about and you want to share, and we'd be happy to hear it. Thank you guys, and have a great rest of your week. Remember to take a breath. Take a couple deep breaths after this. Just enjoy next couple moments.
Be gentle with yourself.
Be gentle with yourself. And we're here for you. All right, bye.